There's no doubt Indiana has been the best, the most dominant team in college football this season. But since the Hoosiers beat the Ducks in Eugene a couple of months ago, you could also make the argument that Oregon has been the second best team in college football. They're unbeaten since that loss at 8-0. They're scoring nearly 35 points per game, winning by nearly 20 per contest. Out rushing, they're winning the line of scrimmage both offensively and defensively. The turnover margin may not be as good as Indiana's, but it is solid. And Oregon heads into this game looking for much more than payback. That's going to be a narrative from the media. Dan Lanning's going to be asked about getting revenge. Kurt Cignetti knows that's not the story. Dan Lanning knows that's not the story. As we heard Coach Sig say, of course, both staffs will look at this tape, see what worked, what didn't. These are two different teams at two different points in the season. I'm not really sure how much that meeting back in October actually means on January 9th in Atlanta.
Well, I think they both said it, and I'm going to get on the table now. Like, can we just get two head coaches to do press conferences together all the time for, like, regular season matchups? Because it was great to watch their banter back and forth in advance of this one. But I think when you go back and you look at that game, because I think there's elements that you do want to take away from the first time that they met, and whether it's little moments like Coach Cignetti said, confidence, understanding, hey, we believe in what we can do. Or on the other side, Dan Lanning saying, hey, late in the game, they own the line of scrimmage. But early in the game, we had our moments in the line of scrimmage. I think there's going to be areas where they both will lean on the experience of playing one another. I think for the Ducks, it was, hey, this team is real. Look out. And here's the point of the physicality. I think the narrative coming out of the game was the Ducks got owned at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I watched that game a few times now. I don't see that as the truth. I think there were times, these two snaps are examples where Oregon won the line of scrimmage. It's just, can you do it consistently throughout the entirety of this game? That'll be the challenge for both of these teams. I think we do have the two of the best teams. I would argue the two top teams among the four remaining in the country. It's going to feel like a national title game. It's going to be one at the line of scrimmage. And those are the parts I think they're going to pull back from the first time that they met.
Yeah, I think no matter who wins this game, whether it's Oregon or Indiana, that team will be the favorite when they get to the national championship game on the 19th down in Miami. But right now, nobody's worried about that. We get to see Oregon, Indiana round two with the stakes so much higher. We have much more CFP conversation still to come with Yogi. We explain how both Indiana and Oregon have evolved on both sides of the ball since their meeting earlier in the year. But first, talk some hoops. Rayfel Davis joins us after the break with the best of the weekend that was. This is Big Ten Today. Welcome back to Big Ten Today. A look at the weekend big board in men's basketball. Every game played on Saturday and Sunday. Perhaps none stands out more than Nebraska's 58-56 win over Michigan State as the Huskers remain undefeated. Important win on the road for an Oregon team that had been struggling. Braden Smith setting more records in Purdue's win over Wisconsin. Illinois takes care of business against Penn State. Iowa, do not sleep on the Hawkeyes. Just two losses and two really good road losses for Ben McCollum in his first year. And then on Sunday night, Indiana picks up an important win. Offensively, Indiana really good against Washington as they win by 10. Tell you what it all means now as Rayfel Davis joins us here on Big Ten Today. And I do want to start with that Nebraska win because I think Nebraska's hot start was somewhat tempered by folks saying, well, wait until they get inside the Big Ten and have to play some of the league's best. Well, they played some of the league's best. They go on the road to beat Illinois. They beat Michigan State as well, and they do it by playing a Michigan State style and keeping this game in the 50s. Right now, Fred Hoiberg's team can win games home, away, low scoring, high scoring. To me, that makes them a legitimate contender to not just be in the mix, but to win the Big Ten at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Nebraska, and I see it as going from a really good story to start the season to where this is a really good basketball club, and they can beat you in a lot of ways, like Rick mentioned. They can beat you in the 80s, like we saw them go on the road and doing Champaign against Illinois, but they can win those grinded-out games. It was big time to watch them take care of Michigan State at home in Lincoln, crowds going crazy. They needed that to reward those fans for showing up every single night, but I love how they went about it. Offensively in that first half, it was like a shootout. Rink Mass was going crazy, knocked down 5 threes in the first half. Rink Mass, to me, is playing like the player of the year in this conference. If the season was to end right now, Rink Mask, what he's doing for this Nebraska Cornhusker offense and on the defensive end, he's your player of the year. He's scoring at a high level. He's defending at a high level. He's a great leader. This Nebraska team is stout on the offensive end. They share the ball so well. So when they get in those grinded out games, when it gets bogged down, they move it, they cut, they move their bodies. You look at it, 15 assists on their 18 made field goals. It just speaks to how Coach Hoiberg has got this team together on the offensive end.
Well, and Fred Hoiberg made that point last year when Nebraska took a step back. He said, folks that don't know basketball or don't really know our team don't understand how important Rink Mast is in every single aspect. And now we're seeing that this year. But he's getting help around him. Stint number 2 for Jamarcus Lawrence. There are other veteran guys, right, on this team. And I think that allows Fred Hoiberg to be able to change pace, change his strategy depending on the opponent that you're playing, because with a veteran team, those guys don't get flustered if you have to alter the schedule of what you normally do.
Yeah, they've been in every single moment you can think of in college basketball. And when you have Rink Mask out there on the perimeter, it just stretches the defense apart. It puts so much pressure on Michigan State. You watch Cooper, one of the better defenders in this conference. He was struggling. He didn't know if he should be in the paint. He didn't know if he was out there on the perimeter. And it takes away all that rim protection that you would normally have on the defensive end. That's why you see Sam Hoiberg getting those cuts to the basket. You see Jamarcus Lawrence getting drive layups. They understand their roles. They don't turn it over. They play together, and they play hard. You make a mistake against Nebraska, you turn it over, they're not rushing down to the other end to try to go get them one. They're going to make you pay. So you turn it over against this team, you better be ready to defend at the highest level on the other end of the floor. I just love what they've gotten going. And you look at Braden Frager off the bench, not scared. You got a freshman coming off the bench, coming into the game, making big-time shots, getting the crowd going. This team is the real deal. I go back to preseason. A lot of people, they talk about exhibition games. They don't like exhibition games. They mean nothing. But I think that Nebraska victory over BYU to start the season, it was big time, because you beat a team like a BYU who a lot of people thought would go to a Final Four, compete to win a national championship. It gives that locker room so much confidence. And the way Rink Mast played against A.J. DeBansa, it had to give him a different level of confidence to be able to go out there this season and put this stuff together.
It'd be very easy in most years to say, January 5th, wow, Nebraska, clearly the best team in the Big Ten. Trouble is, Michigan also plays basketball inside the Big Ten. And the Wolverines, like the Huskers, are not just unbeaten. Michigan is completely untested. I mean, Rayfeld, they are running everybody out of the gym. They're winning by 30. They're winning by 40. They're doing it by scoring nearly 100 or over 100 in every game and limiting the opposition to 60. It's almost like it's not as if they don't take a game off. They don't take a single possession off on either end of the floor.
Yeah, because they have no lack in their lineup. You have nowhere where you could sub a guy in and say, oh, we need to help him a little bit. You look at it, Michigan has 9 legit starters, guys that can play all game long. You think about that game against USC, the starters struggled. Marez Johnson was balling. Marez Johnson was big time. But everyone outside of Marez struggled. So you bring in that second unit, and 4 guys off the bench get you double figures. Trey McKinney coming up from the bench for this Michigan squad is a problem. This guy's going to play in the NBA for a long time. Roddy Gale will start on a lot of Big Ten squads this season. And then you look about how they defend at the highest level. All 9 guys locked in. Perimeter, interior, shot blocking ability. This team is the real deal. They can beat you in the break. They can get to the free throw line. They get you on the offensive glass. They can knock down shots. This team is the real deal. I got Michigan as the favorite to win it all this season.
They're 13 games into the season. Yes, they're 13-0, but more impressive to me, they've won 10 of those 13 games by at least 25 points.
Crazy.
They've done it against really good competition that they've beaten by 30 or 40. So right now, you're comfortable in saying that on January the 5th, you believe Michigan is the favorite to win the national title?
I believed it on October 1st. I believed it in November 15th. I believe it now. I'm going to believe it in March, because when you have guys that can defend at that level, that compete at that level, but then you also throw in the skill set that Michigan has, that's a good basketball team. A lot of skillful teams, they don't defend. A lot of teams that defend at a high level, they can't shoot it. And Michigan has both, and then they also have a lottery pick, and Yaxel Lindenberg. Marez Johnson is playing himself into the NBA draft. And then you look at Ade Mara. It was a play in that first half. I believe Ade Mara is one of the most skilled players in this country. Marez Johnson gets a defensive rebound. He throws a full-court outlet pass to 7'3" Ade Mara, catches it on the break. Ade throws a lob to Roddy Gill at the rim. This team is fantastic. There's nothing they can't do. They go 6 for 30 from the three-point line. They get 39 free throws, and they get 26 points on a fast break. When it's not working in one aspect, they get you in another one. That's what makes them special.
And, of course, Dusty May has those Final Four credentials with FAU. Year one, he wins a Big Ten tournament at Michigan. It does seem like they have all the pieces right now to make a run deep into March and to early April for the Wolverines. Of course, Braden Smith and Purdue may have something to say about that. Smith making history over the weekend, passing Cassius Winston as the all-time Big Ten assist leader. He now has 893. His sights are set on Bobby Hurley's all-time NCAA record. Assuming Purdue plays 17 more regular season games, at least one in the Big Ten and one in the NCAA tournament, Smith needs to average 9.6 assists per game. He's averaging 9.6 assists per game.
To break that record and still have, 17 conference games in the Big Ten tournament and the NCAA tournament in front of you, it just kind of speaks volumes to, what he's been able to accomplish. But we've also had to have people that can make shots too. So he understands that, that point of it. If you're out there by yourself and you can really pass and you're with a bunch of spazzes that can't shoot, you're not going to get that record. So it's a great individual record, but it's also a great team record. He's special. He's elite.
Just to be clear, I don't think Matt Painter was talking about Raphael Davis when he said Smith wouldn't have this record if he was surrounded by guys who can't shoot, but he may have been.
Yeah, probably so. You got Fletcher Lawyer, Raphael Davis coming off those screens. He probably don't get those assists if I play.
And one of these things is not like the other. When you talk about Braden Smith, though, it's not just about his ability on the floor. He could have taken more money and gone somewhere else this year. There were rumors out there that Kentucky and some other schools are willing to pay maybe twice as much as he's currently making at Purdue. He's comfortable there. He knows what surrounds him. He wants to get back to the Final Four and win a national championship. He is the embodiment of a humble leader for Matt Painter on the floor.
Yes, he is. And then he doesn't play like it on the floor. He's a quiet kid by nature. He doesn't talk much. He leads them through his actions on the floor, though. I love the way Braden Smith goes about his work. You go back to last season. Purdue ends their season. They lose in the Sweet 16. A lot of players would take some time off to rest, to go on vacation, to have some fun, kind of let go of the season. 1 week later, Braden Smith is already back in the gym. It just speaks to who he is as a player. And I go back to his high school career. Braden Smith was the 198th best player in his high school class. It's crazy. You look about where Purdue was at that time. Isaiah Thompson had just transferred out. Eric Hunter had just transferred out. Coach Painter was going after guys like Nigel Pack. He didn't know who would be the point guard for this squad. The fan base was concerned at who would be the leader of this team. Braden Smith steps in that role. He's never looked back. And I love that he does everything so non-traditionally as a passer on the floor. The jump passes, the spin passes, the behind-the-back throws. He's perfected every way to pass the basketball. But I love what he said to Jim Jackson after the game. The assist record was great, but it doesn't mean anything now. He wants to win a national championship and get Purdue back to the heights, and I love that about him.
A lot of people question Braden Smith for not taking more money. What's his NBA future at that size? Can you play the point? He has overcome odds at every single level. So he's not concerned about the money because he truly believes, and who are we to say that he's wrong, that he will get to the NBA and be a starting point guard at the next level. Iowa has been really good. I would argue better than most people expected. You think about the Hawkeyes with 14 games in now after the win over UCLA, they're 12-2. They're only 2 losses to a really good Michigan State team and a really good Iowa State team, and both those losses are on the road. Bennett Sturts has proven he's a baller at every level, and that's not going to change. Guys like Alvaro Folgueras have been great adds, and Ben McCollum seems to be, at least at this point, Ray, early into his Big Ten career, pushing all the right buttons.
Yeah, and I love how they go about it as well. We talk about Braden Smith, but you look at this Iowa squad, the way they defend is a high level. They guard you. They push you out to the half court, and they extend that pressure. Iowa forces you to take quick shots. They force you to turn the basketball over, and then once you do, they go to the other end, and they bleed that clock. Iowa's going to make you defend for all 30 seconds. They're not taking bad ones. And when that shot gets going, shot clock goes down, it's getting to 5, 6 seconds. You get the ball to Bennett Sturts and go get me one, young fella. And that's exactly who this team is. You think about UCLA, they were making that comeback into that basketball game. They were inching their way back in. You have a closer in Bennett Sturts who can get you 10 points the last 4 minutes of the game and send you to victory. All 5 guys defend, all 5 guys play hard, and all 5 guys play within themselves on the offensive end, which allows for so much passion and so much individual outcomes for a guy like Bennett Sturts.
And I think Ben McCollum is using the formula that he's used throughout his career to be successful at every single stop. He's just doing so with a little bit more talent against tougher competition. That's been a very good combination so far for Iowa. First year as well for Indiana head man Darren DeVries. A little bit more of an up and down start as he was trying to build chemistry like McCollum with a completely new roster. But this team can score the basketball.
Yes,
and we saw it against Washington. And to me, the Washington game is a really important game for a team like Indiana because it's a game you are supposed to win because of where it is, because of how you match up with that specific team. These are the games that Indiana has to win to be in the conversation to get to the tournament.
And I thought it was perfect for those guys to be out there, go out there and put up 90 points on Washington, win that game at home, and your best player, Tucker DeVries, only has 6 points in the entire game. And you look at how Washington wanted to defend Indiana. It was to take Tucker DeVries away. It was to take Lamar Wilkerson away and make someone else beat them. And Indiana's other guys beat them. Tate Conaway started cooking in that first half. You look at how Washington was able to guard Indiana. They started in a triangle and 2, and they said, we're going to guard these 2 guys. We're going to pressure them, face guard them. But if these other guys make shots, we're okay with it. And they lost doing it because Conaway got going. Inner right, big body, physical guard getting downhill to the basket. He had 12 and 9. And in that second half, my guy, Trent Sisley, who I love to watch play ball, watched him since he was a freshman from Santa Claus, Indiana. He got going. He made 2 big threes in that second half. Their ability to cut off the basketball was big time. I love this version of Indiana. It was a great balance between the three-pointers. They made 12, but then they also got into the lane and made 10 layups. And then defensively, they out-rebound Washington. They guard the ball. They were tough inside. This is the level of toughness, this is the level of defense to go along with the shot-making ability that can get Indiana back to the tournament.
Yeah, very nice bounce back after those losses to Minnesota and Louisville. Now ripped off 5 in a row, including a couple in the Big Ten. Road trip to Maryland on Wednesday. Another really important game because you think about the schedule after that. Nebraska, Michigan State, Iowa, Michigan is the 4-game stretch coming up after that road trip to Maryland for the Indiana Hoosiers. Up next here on Big Ten Today, the focus returns to football. Yogi Roth takes us on the field to break down both sides for round 2 between Indiana and Oregon at the Peach Bowl. About Oregon's defense and specifically that front 7. It was absolutely in lockdown mode against Texas Tech. Mateo Uyunglele was a guy who came into this year with all the hype. He wasn't even an all Big Ten selection, and it wasn't because his numbers were that far down. It's just because he gets double and triple teamed on so many snaps. He made the biggest play of the game against Texas Tech. Their backside with guys like Brandon Finney, a true freshman who plays like anything but a true freshman, was also tremendous. How does Oregon's defense find an advantage against the Indiana offense?
Well, these are the 2 top defenses remaining in the CFP when you just look at the stats or if you look at the tape. And I think this front 7 is really underplayed, underhyped up when I look at how they perform, whether it's Tatum Tuioti, Mateo Uyunglele. How about Bear Alexander and the resurgence he's had in his career since he's gotten to Eugene? And then Bryce Betcher, the guy who kind of cleans it all up at the linebacker position. And then you reference the back end and Finney and others, Dylan Thieneman. This is a group that, to me, has grown the most on the Oregon defense all season long, especially from that Indiana game now. I mean, when you're doing games, you're talking to coaches, you're thinking, okay, where is there an area teams will attack Oregon? And often it was the corners. Like, are they susceptible? Not anymore. I mean, it is time on task for this back end under Tosh Lupoy, Dan Lanning, Chris Hampton. I mean, this is an elite defense, and it's going to make life challenging. I thought Carter Smith, what he said was exactly right. Same deal with Ohio State. I mean, this game, how many 3rd and 2s, 4th and 1s are we going to get? Can't wait to see it. You're at the game, just stand at the line of scrimmage and watch to see who wins each battle. I think it's really evenly matched when you look at these 2 teams, and that's how it should be. Right? No one should be a total dominant favorite in a CFP semifinal in college football coming out of the Big Ten. That's why I said earlier, like, it feels like a title tilt. And when it's offense-defense with IU and Fernando Mendoza versus Mateo, Bryce Betcher and company, that's what you have, folks.
I love the suggestion to stand at the line of scrimmage. You know, Urban Meyer will be part of our pregame coverage on Friday, Yogi, and I've covered a couple of CFP games with Urban. He does exactly that. He wants to stand directly at the line of scrimmage. That's what a coach wants to look for. Both these coaches know that will probably be the key. So for Oregon offensively, that line has gotten better. The run game is so varied because so many different guys can do it. Dante Moore has been very open and honest about the fact that he didn't have the right mindset in round one against Indiana. What do you expect from the Oregon defense or offense in the rematch?
I feel like it's going to be kind of like Penn State a little bit when you felt like that swagger coming out of the tunnel, right? We've all seen the videos 100 times now. When Dante Moore referenced he wasn't himself, he referenced being a little too tight. His teammates said, hey, where's the jokester? Where's the smile that we've become accustomed to? And I love not only the vulnerability, but the reality. I mean, we live in a different era where the quarterbacks, and we're around them every weekend, the intensity, the scrutiny, the expectation is ludicrous. But it's also their reality. So the only way you move through it is you just keep playing. And I love that about him and Will Stein and Dan Lanning of talking about openly, like, this is something, it's a growth mindset organization. You walk into that facility, and that's the first word that you see on every turn. And that's where Dante Moore has really grown. Whether it's walking into this environment a little bit more sure of himself, whether it's being a little bit more loose, or also just taking what the defense gives you. And I think that's what you have to do against an Indiana defense. They make things so challenging, but if they can run the football a little bit, and I'd expect them in this game to be in the pistol formation, meaning quarterback in the shotgun, one of those running backs directly behind Dante Moore, and run right at this defensive front. If you do that, you have a shot. Because if you give them a little bit room to breathe and make plays, it's challenging. We know what this defense is, coming off the edge, the havoc element that they have, what Aiden Fisher, these linebackers, have done all season long, or really since they've shown up in Bloomington, is impressive. But I think this is where the thing will be won. I'll be so curious to see how Oregon tries to run directly at the interior of this front. I'm not saying they can do it, but that's what I would do. That's where Oregon has had the most success. And then we'll see what happens on the back end, how Kenyon Sadiq is covered. But again, like I just said on the other side of the ball, this is an elite offense. This is a big-time explosive play offense, and I think against the best defense in America. They cause havoc. They don't give up big plays. They make you earn every single thing. And Oregon moved the ball on them the first time around. They just didn't do it enough. We'll see how this one shakes out. But again, I expect this one to be so tight. I don't think we're going to see 38-3 in the semifinals. I think this is a one-score game that maybe comes down to either one of the kickers.
I love that description of Indiana's defense, havoc, because that is exactly what the Hoosiers have created and what the Ducks will try to avoid on Friday. Coming up next, more from Yogi. Chip Kelly is back in the Big Ten, joined at Northwestern by one of his former assistants. Yogi's on the comings and goings of the Big Ten coaching carousel when we come back. Oh, the coaching carousel is spinning at a high rate. I would try to get you through all the Big Ten coaching firings and hirings that have taken place over the last month, but the show is only an hour long. Some of the more high-profile changes, Kyle Whittingham landing in Ann Arbor. How about what David Braun has done in bringing in Chip Kelly as the OC at Northwestern, and a Big Ten to Big Ten coordinator change? Dan Lynn leaving USC, headed back to his alma mater at Penn State. Yogi Roth is back with us to talk about some of these changes. And obviously, Yogi, we're going to start at Michigan, where Kyle Whittingham inherits a program that is considered by pretty much everybody to be a top 5 program in the country. Coach Whitt did amazing things in 2+ decades at Utah with less talent than he will coach at Michigan. What intrigues you the most about this change and Whittingham stepping in Ann Arbor?
Well, I've known Kyle Whittingham for a long time. I was there the first game. He was the co-head coach with Urban Meyer when Urban was on his way to Florida because they beat my beloved Pitt Panthers in the Fiesta Bowl, and then covered him for a long time, over a decade. He's got a line that I love that he'll use with this program too at Michigan, which is you're either all in or you're in the way. Like he's got a way about him. It's going to be a physical out. There's going to be a ton of discipline. Clearly a proven winner. And then when you look at what he's done staff-wise, it's really impressive on both sides of the ball. Bringing over Jason Beck, who he just spent a year in the fire, right, in the trenches in Salt Lake City. What they did offensively was so impressive. And then on the other side, Jay Hill comes in, who's been a head coach before. He knows Kyle well. He's going to be the head coach of the defense. To me, if I'm a player, I think that's really where my mind went once it was done. I'm saying, not only do we have a proven winner, we have a future college football Hall of Famer who wants to win our style of football. I mean, Utah's done it the Michigan way. Physical, disciplined, with a very competitive and enthusiastic fan base. I mean, he knows the buttons to press within this operation. If I'm a player, I'm saying, let's go. Let's hit the ground running. Now with these coordinator hires set, if I'm the offensive line, I'm saying, let's ride. If I'm Bryce Underwood, I'm saying, let's ride, especially with Jason Beck as the coordinator, what he's done with players that have similar skill sets, but not at the elite level as Bryce. I'd be thrilled, and they should be. And I expect Michigan, with the schedule they have next year, to make a big jump from where they were this past season.
I think one of the biggest eye-opening coordinator hires was made by David Braun at Northwestern. Chip Kelly, just about a year removed from calling plays for the national champion at Ohio State, returns into the Big Ten after an unsuccessful run with the Raiders in the NFL. And Jerry Neuheisel comes with him, who had been elevated to OC after the coaching change at UCLA and did some great things with the Bruins. What kind of message does this send, Yogi, at Northwestern?
Look out. I think that's the number one thing. And I think for knowing Chip Kelly as long as we have, and I've known Jerry since he was a player, Chip Kelly's not going to go anywhere where there isn't tremendous alignment. And you hear that word all the time in our profession here. And it basically means from the top down. And you look at Mark Jackson, the athletic director, he wants to win. He's only won everywhere he has been. You look at David Braun and the way they finished the season. They know what this league is. And now you bring in Chip Kelly, another college football Hall of Famer, in my opinion. He is one of the very few people that we can not even argue, but solidify saying he changed the game. He did that at Oregon. So many have tried to copy that. He's won in college everywhere he has been. I know he's thrilled to be there around great people, around an institution that is as elite as Northwestern. They have all the tools that you need. We'll see how they land here in the portal as this continues to shake out. But he and Jerry Neuheisel, I love it. I think it's huge for the conference. I think it's massive for Northwestern. And the message is, hey, we're not playing around. Like, we are trying to win and win big. We just got a college football Hall of Famer to call plays in Chip Kelly, who's done it at every level. I love the hire and the style in which David Braun has continued to orchestrate the staff.
How about the start for Matt Campbell? Early in his tenure at Penn State, just announced over the weekend that his former Iowa State quarterback, Rocco Becht, one of the winningest active quarterbacks in college football, will join him at Penn State. That comes after the news that D'Anton Lynn, who of course played in State College, did great things as the DC at USC, will return to his alma mater. I'm not a guy, Yogi, who loves to say before it actually works, this is a home run hire, but I don't see how this is anything but.
Well, I think living out here in L.A. and getting to know D'Anton over the last couple seasons at UCLA and, of course, USC, you always felt like he might get a pull to the National Football League. So I think what it speaks to is the power of Penn State and the power of this new hire in Matt Campbell and now bringing D'Anton Lynn back. Whoa, look out. With this program, they bring a Kaika Malloy as well, who is the one-time defensive coordinator at UCLA. Like, this staff just continues to grow. Players are going to want to follow D'Anton Lynn. For him to want, with his young family, to move back to Happy Valley, a place, of course, where he has tremendous memories as a player, I think speaks volumes to what is going on. I mean, let's just look at this league. We're going to be real. You've got Indiana, Oregon right now at the top. You're always going to put Ohio State and Michigan there. USC, that brand is massive. Penn State saying, hey, we're still here. We have a big-time expectation. That was the obvious point when they made the change with James Franklin and the hire with Matt Campbell. And now you add D'Anton Lynn to the mix. Like, yeah, the expectation has been set again. So I can't wait. I mean, I know we're in the semis, but can we get to, like, the kickoff of next season a little bit quicker, man? It'll be so fun to call any of these teams' games with the changes you just described on the coaching staffs.
Yogi, don't rush me, man. I got to get to Atlanta this week. I got the Peach Bowl to cover first. We got all sorts of stuff. And don't go anywhere later this week. Not yet, at least. You're done for today. We're going to talk to you as we get set for the Peach Bowl. Great stuff as always, my man.
Thanks, brother.
It's time for one final break on Big Ten Today. Get some final hoops thoughts from Raphael Davis on Monday matchups featuring Michigan State and the still smoking Huskers. Allow me to introduce you to Charlie Two-Stick Serrato. One attached to his midsection, the other, well, where it should normally be. No bother for the Penn State forward. He goes to the net, gets rid of the stick, and scores as Penn State beats RIT 7-3. Women's hoops coming up tonight here on the Big Ten Network. It is a double dip. It starts with Minnesota and 9th-ranked Michigan. That's 6:30 Eastern Time, 3:30 Pacific. That is followed by Northwestern and Iowa. We get you started with a special tip-off show, 6 o'clock Eastern, right here on the Big Ten Network on Monday night. A couple of men's games on the Monday schedule as well, including Michigan State back at home hosting USC after that loss on the road to Nebraska. One of Tom Izzo's hallmarks throughout the entirety of his Hall of Fame career has been the ability for his teams to bounce back. Yep. What do you expect from Michigan State at home against USC?
Yeah, I expect a much better performance on the offensive end. Nebraska did a tremendous job of forcing Michigan State to play in the half court. They didn't let them get out and run in the break, and it bothered the Spartans. So I expect to see a much more disciplined offense, more guys contributing to the offense. You look at Kohler, he was great. Kohler gave him 17 on the road at Nebraska. Fears, we know what he can bring to the table, his ability to set the table for teammates. But who else is going to score the ball for the Spartans, especially out of transition? We know Cohen Carr is one of the more electric players in the country. But when the game gets bogged down, when you're forced to play in the half court, who can you go to? I think that needs to be the focus for Michigan State. But I know USC, they're going to run it right up and down.
It's been those second halves in the Michigan State losses to Duke, to Nebraska, where they started to get stagnant offensively in the second half because the opposition took away the drives, took away transition, took away the paint, and forced Michigan State to do what it does not do well, shoot jump shots, especially beyond the three-point line. Michigan State trying to get back on the winning track on Monday against USC. Now, on the flip side of that coin, Nebraska has never left the winning track, but it's never easy to win at home, then quickly go on the road and play a talented team. Nebraska does that against Ohio State, and that means you have to deal with the do-it-all Buckeye, Bruce Thornton. I feel like he's been in college for like a decade and a half, but I love him so much, I hope he has 3 or 4 more years of eligibility.
Yeah, and he's playing his best basketball of his career. Bruce Thornton is quietly playing like the best point guard in this conference. Bruce is averaging 21 points a game on 58% from the field.
That's crazy.
And 48% from the three-point line. He can do it all. He's 6'2", big body guard. He plays in the lane. He makes the right decisions. He gets to that mid-range game. And once he gets going, he is going. He is tough to deal with. Sam Hoiberg, though, one of the better perimeter defenders in this conference. So that is going to be a battle at the head of an attack. But I look at Ohio State. You need more from the other guys. John Mobley Jr. has to give these guys more on the offensive end and defensively. Christoph Tilley has to be a guy they can throw the ball to on the block and go get them a basket. And Devin Royal still working through that change of position, going from the 4 to the 3, getting used to it. This Ohio State team is one of the more talented teams in this conference. You look at the top of their roster, one of the more talented groups.
I agree.
But they've got to put it together in a full 40-minute game, especially on the defensive end. We know they're good offensively, but they've got to defend a lot better, especially when you're facing an offensive team like Nebraska.
And to take it full circle, we started our conversation about Nebraska with how veteran they are, how much leadership they have, how Fred Hoiberg can change things and schedules. This is one of those scenarios where it could play itself out when you have to quickly go on the road after a home win against a really good team. We'll see what guys like Mast and Lawrence and Hoiberg and the rest of those guys can give, not just in terms of production, but in terms of the quick turnaround from one game to the next. Do want to touch on Oregon and Rutgers because it may not be as high profile as some of the other games, but for these programs, this is a really important game. Oregon's been off to a slower start than I think most people expected, so you make that East Coast road trip to a team that you're supposed to beat. If you want to have any conversation surrounding you about being a tournament team, this is the kind of game where Nate Biddle and Jackson Shellstad and the best players in Oregon, they have to dominate.
Yeah, because you have to win this game. If you want to save your season, if you're Oregon, you want to get things turned around into the right direction, make your way back to the NCAA tournament, it starts with this game. It starts with going on the road and having a good performance, a dominant performance. You look at Nate Biddle, one of the better players in this conference when he plays to his full ability. If I'm Oregon, I'm throwing the ball to Nate Biddle every single possession to start the basketball game. Ogbole cannot handle Nate Biddle on that block. He's prone to pick up some foul trouble. That can get the offense going. Jackson Shellstad has to be better. He's been dealing with some injuries, didn't play last game, but if he's on the floor, he has to be a guy they can depend on to go get them 16, 17 points every single game. When I look at Oregon, I know what they can do offensively with Nate, Jackson, KJ Evans is big time around that rim. It's with the toughness in the defense on that end of the floor. They've got to be better when it comes to being better on the glass, when it comes to keeping the ball out of the paint, and just being a strong, confident defense. That's where they've lacked this season.
I know Jersey Mike's always a tough place to play, but But to your point, a game Oregon has to win. Before we go, I'm curious, what does a Purdue alum think about this Indiana football run to the CFP semifinals?
Man, my brother is an Indiana alum. My sister's an Indiana alum. If Indiana wins a national football championship before Purdue wins a national basketball championship,
there. I didn't try to set you up that way. Rafael Davis setting up the world to officially explode.
Yes, it will.
For Ray and Yogi Roth, I'm Rick Pizzo. Thanks for the hang here on Big Ten Today. That's great stuff.